2, 3, 4. Bonner here again, and today I'm going to talk about bridge pin tips. I've got 4 different tips to tell you about the bridge pins. On these steel string acoustic guitars, our strings are secured by the bridge pins, and there's 4 things that I think you should know about them. The first thing is, how do we get them out so that we can change our strings? The second thing is, how do we get them out when they're stuck without damaging the pin or the guitar? Thing number 3 is how do we prevent the ball from slipping? Sometimes when you're tightening your string up, it seems to be tuning and then it goes tack, and then your string goes slack and then you have to start over again. I'll show you a trick for preventing that from happening. And thing number 4 is a recommendation for the kind of bridge pins that I use. So that's what we're going to look at. We're going to go over to my table and you can see all these things close up. I'll see you in a second. Okay, so now we're over at the table, and I've got the camera zoomed in quite close so that you can see what I'm actually doing right here at the bridge, because that's where we want to focus. Okay, the very first thing we're going to do is tip number 1. How do I remove a bridge pin? Okay, my strings are on and more or less tuned. How do we remove a bridge pin in the normal course of things? A bridge pin that is not stuck. Okay, so the first thing I do is I loosen the string. Now, when I'm doing this on my own guitar, most of the time, what I do is I just loosen the string and remove it completely from the tuning machine. But in any event, and that's a good thing to do, just wind it right off so that it comes off the tuning machine. That's what I'm doing now. So once I have that string loosened off, you'll see there's a lot of flexibility, a lot of slack in the string. And what I do is I just pull it down like this so that you can see that there's a lot of slack there. And then I poke the string down into the hole. And when I do that, I'm releasing the pressure that's holding the pin. And then the pin just comes right out. Okay? And that's all there is to it. That's how we remove a pin when the pin is not stuck. Okay? Tip number 2, how do I remove a pin when it is stuck? If I have a pin that is slightly stuck in the guitar, or I'm not sure how stuck it is, but it won't come out just when I push the string down, then what I do is I still leave the string slack. I take a soft cloth. This is a microfiber cloth, or you can use a piece of chamois, whatever you have, to protect the pin, because we don't want to damage the bridge pin. We want to be very gentle with it. I put this over the pin. I take a pair of reasonably good needle nose, and the ones with a bend at the end are very handy. And I grab the pin on either side, and I gently, and I'll push the string down again as best I can. It may not move if the pin is stuck. And then I gently pull the pin up. And if the pin is just a little bit stuck, it'll just come right out. Like that. Just like a loose tooth. Okay, don't do this on your teeth though. Okay, so that's how we do it. I just put a cloth over the pin. I grab the pin on either side very gently with the needle nose so I'm not damaging the pin. And I just pull the pin out. Okay, so that's tip number 2A. How do I remove a pin if the pin is a little bit stuck? Okay, so tip 2B is how do I remove a pin, a bridge pin, that's quite stuck. So I tried putting a cloth on and pulling, it didn't come. You don't want to use force. This is the technique we use for doing this. The first thing we do is we make sure we loosen off all the strings, and you can see I've already done that here. So these strings are all very, very slack. Okay, and that's to create some flexibility. I'm going to go inside the guitar. So what I do is I need a small hard object. In this case, I'm using a disposable lighter. You can use a Lego, anything that's small and hard that you can use. We're going to use it to press the stuck pin up from the bottom. So what I do is I slack off the strings. I put my hand inside and make sure they're slack enough that you don't have to fight with them. Once your hand's in, put your lighter in, or whatever you're using. You reach in and you find the end of the pin with your fingertip, and then you press your hard object against the end of the pin that's stuck. Okay, see if I can find my pin there. Where is it? There it is. Okay. And then I push it up from below. And I try to brace the bridge with these two fingers here so that I have a firm grip to press against, because I don't want to use any force if I can avoid it, or I don't want to subject the guitar itself to any force. I'm just pushing the pin and I'm holding the top with my fingers, and up it comes. And that's how we get a stuck bridge pin out. Okay? And then I just bring my hand out, my bridge pin's out and loose, and I'm back in business. Okay, here we go. So in the interest of simplicity, I've drawn a couple of very basic diagrams that show you tip 3, what our issue is with tip 3. Okay, so the top diagram is a cross-section of the bridge. There's the saddle here. This line is the string going down, and this is the string ball at the end. And this is how your string is meant to sit inside, and the pin holds it down. What we do is we start off with the ball on the end of the pin to push the ball into the hole, and then the ball is meant to slip up and rest here. And it's the pressure of the ball against the pin that creates friction here and presses the pin into the wood of the bridge and locks the whole assembly in place. When we get that snap and release, which is really annoying, and it can even happen after you've tuned the guitar, what happens is we're in position A here, and we have our ball on the end of the pin, and as we're pulling the slack out of the pin, out of the string here, and tightening it up over there on the machine, the ball stays stuck on the end of the pin, and that does sometimes happen. And then either when you're tuning, or sometimes even later when you think you have tuned the guitar, that ball will slip off and bump up here. Now you've got an extra 1/4 of an inch or more of string play, and of course your string immediately snaps out of tune. Plus it's kind of a scary sound. How do we avoid this? I'll show you. Okay, so here's tip 3. Tip 3 is sometimes you'll notice that the end of our pin, and what happens is we've got our pin in the guitar, okay, and the string is strung through, and the ball is at the end. And sometimes when we put the pin in the bridge, the ball stays stuck down at the end, okay? And then as we start to tighten the string, instead of when the ball slipping up nicely and coming up the shaft, the ball stays there, and sometimes it pulls the pin back up over the bridge, or sometimes it stays there, and then as you're tightening, all of a sudden you hear tack, and then the string goes slack, okay? So what we want to do is we want to avoid that, and the way we avoid that is we take our little friend here, Mr. Box Cutter, okay, and what we do is we shave a little wedge in the end of this. Now these are the Tusq pens. I'm going to talk about them in a minute, and they're quite hard, so it takes a little bit of work to shave a wedge, okay, but that's what I'm doing there. And I'll show you. Here's one that I've already shaved, and you can see there's the front of the pin, and if you look at the side, you can see it's been shaved. And so what happens then is when that's put in, the ball is on the end, but it's not a perfect cylinder anymore. And so what happens is, as soon as you push the string in, the ball slides out and comes up and sits underneath the bridge, which is where we want the ball. So that's tip number 3. How do we prevent the string ball getting stuck on the end? And what we do is we just shave a slight wedge into our bridge pins. And I do that to all my bridge pins, and I strongly recommend doing that because it solves that problem. Okay, so this is tip 4 of the bridge pin tips episode. And tip 4 is by way of a product endorsement. I've tried a lot of different bridge pins and associated materials, saddles and nuts on the guitar, and I use a nut called a bridge pin called the Tusq bridge pins from a company called Graphtec, and I'll put the link to Graphtec's site on the comments. It's just even replacing your bridge pins with the Tusq bridge pins is just a cheap and simple way to get a much greater sound out of your guitar. Makes a big difference, especially on a mid-range or even lower end guitar. You'll hear a substantial difference. You know, it makes a difference on my Larrivee to have the Graphtec bridge pins. So that's tip number 4, is try out the Tusq bridge pins from Graphtec. It's not an expensive upgrade. I think they're like $30 or $40 for a set. It's not a lot of money. You get a real bang for the buck. And so that's it. My 4 tips that I gave you today are: number 1, how to pull out a bridge pin. Number 2, how to pull out a bridge pin that's slightly stuck. 2B, how to pull out a bridge pin that's really badly stuck by pushing it from beneath. Number 3, end the stuck ball syndrome on the end of your pins by shaving your pins into a bit of a wedge. And then finally, number 4, my recommendation is the Graphtec Tusq bridge pins. And I'm not getting paid by Graphtec to tell you about the Tusq bridge pins. It's just the result of my experience. I've tried them. They've made a big difference on the sound of my guitars. So that's it for me for today. Thanks very much for watching. I hope those tips were helpful to you. And there is a companion video to this, how to change your strings. If you're still struggling with changing your strings, stop the struggling, watch the video. Piece of cake. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.